All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome along to this webinar. We've got a really interesting webinar planned for you this afternoon. So thanks all of you who've come from the various places that you've come along today to listen to two great speakers talking about the potential of customer advocacy and reviews and how they're related and how they can have quite a big impact on SEO. So I'm going to welcome our two speakers this afternoon. We've got Eddie, or Teddy Cowell, as he's better known, and Alan Duncan from Trustpilot. So as always with these webinars, feel free to ask any questions that you've got in the chat box. We'll do proper Q&A at the end. So if you've got any particular questions, type them in as they come to you and we'll deal with them all at the end. But without further ado, I'll hand over to Teddy and Alan.
Brilliant. Thank you, Calvin. And obviously, thank you for inviting us to do the webinar. So yeah, I'm Teddy. I'm the SEO director for UK and international at Mediacom, and even more particularly the Mediacom Beyond advertising division within Mediacom, which is our creative arm. And obviously, most people know Mediacom as a media agency, the biggest media agency in the UK. But actually, it's really important, I guess, for me to emphasize. Actually, we take SEO really, really seriously. So actually, here's an example of what we would call one of our connected systems diagrams. And as a media agency, one of the things we try to look at is actually our client's sort of entire sort of customer journey and ecosystem, and all the ways that we can help drive the most value for them out of that. And actually what we see is a lot of that obviously is above the line advertising, everything from TV to radio to out of home. But actually the output of that kind of above the line activity increasingly is actually we're driving people to search, and organic search is a huge part of that. In fact, if you're looking at the diagram here, actually in this example for this client, organic search is one of the biggest beneficiaries of all the above the line activity that our clients do. So SEO is a really massive and a very important part of what we do at Mediacom. So why are we here today? And obviously, yeah, well, how can you get the most out of reviews? So where would we be having a discussion about reviews without talking about the most famous review ever? In fact, a review and a t-shirt that practically changed my life. The Three Wolf Moon t-shirt review by Brian McGovern. So the pros are it fits my girthy frame and has wolves on it, and it attracts women. The cons are it only has 3 wolves, but it could probably use a few more on the guns. I cannot see the wolves when sitting with my arms crossed, and the wolves would have been better if they glowed in the dark. This was a really interesting review because it obviously went incredibly viral, and it's really funny. So if you haven't read it yet, I'd suggest you do go and have a look at this review. And there's also a couple of other related ones, such as the Tuscan 6-litre milk, that are worth reading as well. But what was interesting about this is it really got me thinking about reviews, and also more broadly reviews as content, and what you could do with them and how you could be more creative with them. And it's just where it's very, 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 very worth reading. So why would, I guess more broadly, why would you want to use online reviews for your business or for your client's business if you're an agency or a consultant? Well, there's a really, really important reason, and I guess this is probably the most important one, is that online reviews and online reviewers are more trusted with friends and families, and often more trusted than the brands that we work for themselves. So this is a Salesforce study from last year, which is pretty recent, of over 2,000 adults aged 18 and over that have purchased goods online in the last 12 months. And actually, you can see here that actually across brand, friends and family, online reviewers are the most trusted. And more interestingly, depending on your clients or your customers and which demographic they fall into, actually, some of them are more likely to trust online reviewers. So particularly around millennials, sort of that 18 to 34-year-old audience, actually 40% of those are likely to trust online reviews and online reviewers. So that's really, really critical. And they're far more likely to look online for information than they are to go to their friends or family. So I'm not really sure what that says about friends or family, but anyway, it does mean that online reviews, which you're here to talk about today, are pretty important. And I guess the other thing is, when we're thinking about how we can access more customers online and more of the right kind of customers, online reviews are also really, really important. Because The people that purchase online most frequently are more likely to look at online reviews. In fact, this is a Pew Internet study, actually only from December last year, so this is incredibly recent. So that 2/3 of weekly online shoppers say they nearly always read the customer reviews before buying new items. And obviously that slightly decreases for people that are less likely to purchase online more frequently. So that's really, really critical. So people are more likely to trust online reviews in general, and actually the customers that you want to tap into that are most likely to buy online are going to put a lot of weight on online reviews. So having them is important, and using them in the right way is also really, really important. So another reason why we're here today, so why online reviews important and how can they impact your SEO? So having reviews, particularly within your website, is a great form of fresh user-generated content. So you think about your content strategy, how you're going to generate content. Actually, reviews are a really good thing to consider as part of that. Having that content means you've got people creating and writing the content for you. So expanding out the key phrase sets which you can target. And also by having more rich and useful content, hopefully you can generate those natural and organic links you want to help boost rankings. Again, having more key phrases will help you target the long tail better, help with those kind of social sharing aspects of your website. And actually, if you can implement reviews in the right way, it will also help you drive more traffic out of the current rankings that you've got. Also, if you implement in the right way on the website, it can help improve your conversion rates as well. So those are all important reasons to consider why online reviews should be part of your strategy. So how do you implement solutions to tap into that sweet spot of advocacy and reviews? So I think there are sort of three real key sort of pillars of success, or three areas you really need to look at when we're talking about customer advocacy and reviews. So one is primarily auditing what I'd call your current ecosystem, because reviews appear in lots of forms, which I'll talk about in a second. The other one is to plan tactics to drive positivity and volume. And finally, you have to think about, okay, this is what I want to do something with reviews, and I can gather reviews. How do I implement them to get the most out of the reviews or the information and the data that I've got from my customers? So these are the important three pillars here. So auditing, reviewing your ecosystem. I think that's always a really good place to start for anybody, whether you're in-house or working for clients. So what makes reviews such an interesting topic as a whole is actually they're not really kind of one thing, and there's no one answer to what and how you should work with reviews for a number of reasons. One is, if we're looking at the examples here, reviews appear in a huge variety of different places in a large variety of different forms. So for instance, you could look at your local listings, you've got reviews in there, so Google My Business. They can appear on other people's websites, they can appear on their own website, in shopping results, in pay-per-click ad extensions, and that's not even to mention things like the App Store, where reviews can also play a really big role. And beyond just all these areas where you have sort of customer feedback, rating, and reviews, actually searchers online are asking a huge volume of review-related questions. So what should I buy? The reviews for the best televisions, for instance, reviews for just about anything. They're asking these kind of questions. So there's actually a massive kind of pool of search volume out there that you can tap into, and plus there's lots of places where reviews are surfaced in different ways. So depending on which kind of business you are, it's always good to kind of have a look around that and think, okay, well, where am I going to use reviews, and where do they appear? I think you've seen some interesting things, Alan, from a Trustpilot point of view around this, haven't you?
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Alan. Yeah, I think from this slide, me and Teddy were talking about this earlier, and one of the big implications that we've seen from our data that relates to this is customer journey, and the fact that reviews, along with Google Shopping and other online tools, often are completely reversing what you would normally expect to see in a product customer journey, where a customer decides where they're going to buy a product from, and then they will decide which product they're going to purchase. And I think reviews, along with other elements, are really accelerating a lot of people choosing via search often which product they're going to choose. and then they will decide which retailer they're gonna buy that product from, or which service provider they're going to buy that service from. And it just underlines what Teddy was saying, really, about making sure that you've got good visibility at every single stage. It's no good just having a really good review strategy for one part of the customer journey, because it's pretty unpredictable how your consumers are going to come through it.
Yes, definitely. And then beyond sort of auditing your ecosystem, the next stage that you need to have a look at really is planning tactics. So obviously you've looked at that, you've worked out where reviews are appearing. You have to think, okay, well, how am I gonna get people to leave reviews, and how am I going to encourage customer feedback? So I think this is a really important area. And I'm probably not going to touch across all the different areas you can do this, but some of the key ones anyway. So there's a couple of key considerations actually, or challenges really around this as well. How do you get this engagement, this feedback from your customers? So one of the key problems is actually that not everyone will leave a review. There was an interesting study from Global Web Index in 2015. They looked at the percentage of people in different age demographics that had actually left online reviews, and actually showed that on average, across all of them, only about 50% of people would leave online reviews if they're in online shopping. So not everyone will leave a review. And in fact, to be honest, I think the numbers are realistically a lot lower than this. And one of the other challenges is if you don't ask, you don't get. So Mycos did a really interesting study of online retailers in the UK. It's a bit dated, but it's really just to make a point here, actually, more than anything else. So is that as if you don't ask, you don't get. At this point in 2013, most online retailers were not asking their customers to leave reviews, which I think is pretty shocking, because you think we're pretty advanced in 2013, and you'd expect that not a huge amount of change in that amount of time. So in this case, 61.5% of the 52 leading retailers were not actively encouraging product review feedback. In fact, it was only about 26.9% that were. So it was a really, really low number. Alan?
Yeah,
that's your cue.
Thank you for the cue. I'm sorry I missed it. I suppose on our side, one of the things that we do is kind of like automated feedback services, so automatic emails for your customers when they buy products. And from that, the average response rate we see to an email invite is about 14%. Varies massively depending on the style of the business. B2B businesses, for example, can have a very high response rate, really, really long reviews. But if you're a kind of utility product, if you're a key cutting service, with thousands of customers every week, then you might get a low response rate, but still a ton of reviews. But 14% is the average. And I suppose the things that we really try and push are test your email invites, test the content, but also test the timing of them. You better asking them, an hour after they buy your product, or a week, or a month, or 6 months. And also ask more than once, I think, depending on your relationship with the customer. You can ask certainly twice, if not 3 times, for a review, and that will get the volume of reviews up. And Teddy will explain, volume is really important.
Yep, definitely. So obviously that's really, really critical. So as you can see, not a very high percentage of your customers are going to leave reviews, which has implications if, depending on the type of business you are and the amount of the volume of customers you've got going through. So if you've got a low customer volume, actually that means you've got to put that extra effort into trying to get them to engage with you. So are there things you can do to work out, I guess, on top of that? So we now know you need to put a lot of effort into getting reviews. Other things you can do to try and work out who your loyal customers are, for instance, the ones that might be more likely to engage with you. So I think at this point, actually, there's a couple of ways you can approach it. So clearly, you can just go for the real-time responsive reviews, so just asking them to leave online reviews, which is really, really good, so you get that quick feedback loop. And the other one is to look potentially at more deeper customer survey data, where you might get more in-depth feedback from your customers, and think about what you can do with that. So along those lines, one of the things that actually you can think about doing is to ask your customers how likely would you be to recommend our company, our product, or our service to a friend or colleague. And doing that and combining that in the right kind of way, actually you can get to what you call a net promoter score. And this is a scoring methodology that's used by most of the biggest companies in the world. And actually what you find is it's a really good feedback loop. So obviously you get the net promoter score feedback data. And actually by sort of digging more deeply into that, actually, you can make improvements to your business or your product or your service to help improve it. And one of the key things here is that actually the companies that do brilliantly, in fact, nearly across all industries, have extremely high net promoter scores relative to the rest of the players in the marketplace. So as a good example, Amazon has an NPS score of 69, which is 30% above the industry average for online e-commerce sites. And also Apple, for instance, has a net promoter score of 72, which is 40% above the average for computer hardware. So you can see that the biggest and the best players often have very high net promoter scores. And what a net promoter score does, and so you can ask your customers for this kind of feedback, is it looks at the people that are most likely to be advocates for your business. So give you a score of 9 out of 10 in terms of how likely they are to recommend you, divided by the percentage of people that they'd call detractors, and these are only give you a score of 1 to 6. And actually, this is really interesting because the people who give you a better NPS score are likely to be more engaged with your business and overall more satisfied with your product or service. So I think you're likely to get really good feedback out of them. So how does that align with reviews? So obviously the idea here really is not to cherry pick different customers, but actually by really focusing on the ones that might give you good NPS scores, actually they've had a good experience and they really care about your business. And actually, you should focus really heavily on pushing those customers to leave online reviews and give you that feedback. Because although volume is important, actually volume isn't really the main thing I think we're looking for here at reviews. What you're looking for is good, useful reviews and the content in them that helps other customers make their purchase decisions. So there have been different studies about the number of reviews that kind of work. And I think obviously there's anywhere from saying that one review will improve your conversion rate by 50%, and then 5 or above is kind of above 5. Actually, it doesn't really make too much difference either way. But actually, so if you can get good quality reviews, actually, I think that's more about what we need to focus on here, and that information that helps your other customers. And actually, when you get into sort of multi-channel or omni-channel or whatever you want to call it, and to be honest, these days, whether you're a really large multi-channel business or a small SME, there is a degree of this in terms of most people's businesses. And actually, it gets a little bit more complicated because not only have you got your website, you've got your in-store footfall, and you might have your Google My Business listings as well. And how you think about reviews and that kind of customer engagement actually gets a little bit more complicated. But obviously, Google My Business and that kind of online local search component plays a much bigger part of it. And actually, when we think about local search and how you might drive commerce sort of online or offline in store, actually review signals again play a really big part. So when I did this at Brightness here, actually the 2017 one study on local search ranking factors hadn't come out. So it was the 2015 one. And actually review signals were only kind of counted as 8% at that point in time. But now they've gone up to 13%, which actually shows they're a really important part of improving the performance you get out of your local listings. Another reason why having reviews in your Google My Business listings is really critical is nowadays people can filter out your business depending on your review scores. So it's there as an option. So actually, having good positive reviews is really important to make sure that you can always have a presence there. So I think that's really critical. And obviously, Moz is saying they're looking at things like the quantity, the velocity, how frequently you're getting reviews, and those kind of things. So all those different factors matter. But Google My Business comes with a couple of different challenges to driving reviews online, which again makes it a little bit more complicated. So whilst reviews have a really big impact on your local listings, actually there are ways in which you are or are not allowed to drive reviews. So Google is against their policies to incentivize leaving reviews, and also setting up stations where you get customers to fill in reviews at like a business location. You're also not meant to do that. So actually that's a bit of a challenge. So it's not quite so easy just to say you've got these customers, okay, I'll think of some really clever mechanism to get them all to leave reviews online. But you are still allowed to request and direct people to your Google My Business listings, which are the kind of things you should be doing. And along those lines, though, what's also worth thinking about is there's another kind of hurdle, a barrier to getting people to leave reviews. And that is that actually your customers are going to need to have a Gmail account to leave reviews in Google My Business, which will prevent some people from being able to do it. So I'd say one of the tactics you could have a look at, which is within the guidelines to drive more positive reviews, is actually think about your customer base and segment it maybe by email address and location, So actually for Google My Business, so this is actually one of the challenges when you look at the ecosystem. Reviews can appear in so many different places. If you've only got a finite number of customers, how do you start to use them in different ways to help achieve different goals? So one of the things you might look at doing is splitting off customers that potentially have a Gmail account they bought in a particular location, saying actually that little group of customers, actually I'm going to push those to Google My Business, but other customers, high NPS scores, I might push those to my online reviews. And then you can kind of use that customer base without having to bombard them all with more and more repeat review requests. So obviously that's a really good tactic. I know this works extremely effectively, but there used to be a really good loophole where you could direct people straight into the review form, but it doesn't work anymore. And when it did, it was incredibly effective. But this still works in terms of reducing the barriers to entry for getting people to leave reviews. And then sort of beyond your own kind of reviews and ratings of what you do on your website, what else can you do to drive advocacy? So I guess as we work in SEO, and we can debate until the cows come home the relative merits of social signals and their impact on organic search and your website, etc. Obviously, we know that's a contentious topic, and everyone kind of has their own opinions. And personally, actually, I'm a really big fan of them, and there's a couple of reasons why. In Google's words, they'll look at social signals as reinforcement and validation metrics of other activities that's going on online. For a fact, social content can be crawled and displayed, including quite a lot of what's on Facebook. So if anybody says different, I'd argue that 2 billion pages indexed by Google probably proves them wrong. And then the visibility on social networks can lead to those indirect benefits of natural links from other websites. So by the fact you're getting more people to interact with your brand, actually that kind of customer advocacy and so on is really, really important. And actually even these days, obviously within Facebook themselves, if you're a brand or a business, and people can leave reviews. So as long as they've left reviews publicly on your brand profiles, actually those reviews will show up, and actually they'll also be pulled through in organic search. So how can you drive advocacy beyond just the ratings of reviews? So I'd say one of the tactics is incentivizing social sharing. So Amazon do this impeccably, and they've done it for a very, very long time. It's one of the things I like most about the architecture and design of their service. So it's definitely worth looking at a lot of what Amazon does, because obviously they test a lot of these things. But in the checkout confirmation process, they have a very nice function for promoting customized sort of or personalized social sharing options across Facebook, Twitter, email, etc. And actually this works. So just was the day before Brighton SEO, I took a couple of samples where you can see they've been generated from customers that have bought online, and people are pushing out these messages automatically after they've checked out, which increases your brand profile, and you can use it to generate social links back to your website and drive some direct traffic. And again, talking about that social sharing here is an example at the bottom of reviews from around the web. And actually Google now within the knowledge graph of businesses pulling in reviews on OpenTable and actually pulling in reviews from Facebook. So, you know, social does work, and it's really important there. And then I guess a review is also a review. So when you think more broadly about reviews beyond your own website and your own kind of owned assets, your Google My Business website, etc., actually there are other places people are going to go and look for reviews. So Bloomreach did a really interesting study that actually showed that almost 9 out of 10 consumers would check reviews on Amazon even if they were looking at a product somewhere else, which was really, really interesting. So yeah, and there was another one from One Click Retail that actually showed that if someone, even if they were in store, or if they'd go online on their mobile phones, are likely to check quarter more likely to check Amazon, even if they're physically in the store. So if you're a business that trades not only on your own web properties, or a business or a brand, and you're selling on your own properties, but you've got your products on Amazon, make sure that those Amazon reviews are good as well, and do what you can to drive positivity in those, because, you know, whether or not somebody purchases via Amazon or not, actually they're still going to check Amazon to read the information in relation to your products, which is really, really critical there. And then I guess implementing for success, I guess this is really critical. So obviously you can drive that customer feedback and get it in the different places, but within your own website, within your own assets, how can you maximize the impact that you're going to get out of reviews? So I guess most critical, if you've got this data, make sure you surface it really well and make it incredibly visible to users and search engines. So don't hide this away, don't bury it at the bottom of the page. If you've got textual content, you know, this user-generated content, try and surface it in the right way. When you've got the quantitative rating information, the star ratings, try and get those in the right place. So actually, this is an example across a couple of different e-commerce websites, like Amazon, Smart Buy Glasses, etc. And if you look at the kind of CRO aspect of that, how people are implementing reviews, actually getting those ratings in really close, and those kind of, where they're really visible, usually quite close to the products, and the call to action can have a big impact. And there's some studies that say that actually having the ratings information close to the call to action can increase your actions by 24%. So that's a way in which you can improve the conversion rates of your products, by having those good reviews and having them quite close to where the products are, because obviously that's the information that's helping people make their purchasing decisions. Hey. And I guess, yeah, in terms of implementing it, Alan?
Yeah, these are a little bit out of context, so let me just explain. These are
tutorial break.
yeah, short ad break, very short ad break. It's hopefully relevant. So these are widgets that we offer for you to put on your website. We offer 21 different kinds of these, serving many different purposes. But I suppose the most important thing about them is that every single one of them is already marked up for schema. So Google will recognize them almost immediately for rich snippets, which will bring you the all-important star ratings in your search results, and really make them stand out and organic. Particularly if you've got competitors that aren't yet getting rich snippet stars, then they can have a huge effect. Teddy and I were talking about this earlier, and I think you said Yahoo's average kind of impact through having rich snippet stars was about 15%. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's quite an old study, and it was one of the most detailed ones that was done. And they looked at averages of when they introduced the star ratings to their search results. And there's obviously some other studies from Google, sort of around pay-per-click ads, averages around 17%. But I think you're right, it varies quite a lot depending on what the kind of search results set you're in is like. So that the numbers can vary. These are kind of like overall averages, so it's good as a kind of baseline. But for instance, say you're the only site within the search results page, and you're the one that can actually trigger the star ratings. Actually, you may see a much higher click-through rate increase than your competitors. Whereas, for instance, say you're in a search results set where actually, let's say 5 of the 10 have already got star ratings, and then you manage to activate them. Actually, you probably won't see such a great increase, because actually that's the kind of norm in that search result. So it's not going to stand out quite so much to searchers online. But you're absolutely right. The benefits of surfacing rich snippets of star ratings are incredible, and doing that via schema is really important. Obviously,
if you're the only one without them, then then the impact is similarly negative.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. If you're the only one without them, exactly goes the other way. So then you definitely need to get the game on that. So there's lots of good reasons for doing that. So it will draw users' attention to your search results, helping improve the perception of trust, and then also hopefully you're providing relevant information to your users by surfacing that content in the search results. And then definitely, again, it can increase click-through rates. So here's a brief example from one of the Trustpilot clients.
Yeah, this is Lifestyle Sports. I worked with them a couple of months ago and wrote a case study about them, and I just thought it was relevant here because they're an Irish brand. They're one of the biggest retailers in Ireland, certainly in the sports category, sportswear category. And they were about 2 years ago. They started targeting the UK with an online offering, and obviously having a huge competition. And actually getting the trust, what we were talking about earlier about choosing that retailer to purchase the trainers from, they were really struggling with, and they found actually that once they implemented rich snippet stars, it had a really significant uplift in the click-through rate. They also use them on site as well, so the conversion rate increased alongside it as well. But yeah, if you're trying to break into a new market, or if you're trying to break into a new category, rich snippet stars can really help you accelerate that.
Definitely, I totally agree. So obviously, in terms of implementing that, obviously, saw that from Trustpilot, they've got some options you can do that. But if you're going to do this yourself, obviously, there's a couple of ways in which you want to look at this. So the ways in which you would surface your star rating, your review information, is obviously by implementing one of the forms of schema markup on your website. So obviously there's two kind of main forms that most people will use. So there's also RDF, but it's not so commonly used. But traditionally, it's mostly been microdata, which you would integrate around the HTML coding of the product content on the website. although more frequently these days, and actually I think the preferred option is to use JSON-LD, which is obviously a form of JavaScript markup, which either you can put within the head of the page or within your existing tag libraries. So for instance, you can implement JSON-LD through Google Tag Manager, which makes it really, really easy to implement. So really good if you want to test this stuff out. So yeah, so one of these kind of forms of integration. So making sure you've got that review data and it's got the schema marked up in one of these forms is really, really critical, because that's what helps Google and recognize and see the information that you've got on your pages. And also, if you're going to implement this stuff, actually there's some useful tools that Google provide themselves, which I really like. So within Webmaster Tools or Search Console, Google provides really good structured data reports. So actually in Search Appearance dashboard, you've got structured data, and that'll show you actually what's really good. It'll show you the information that you can dig into on a page-by-page basis. It will show you the schema markup that Google, and the structured data that Google has found across your website in all the different forms it takes. So if you've got a broad variety of stuff there, that could be brand, that could be reviews, it could be pricing, it could be recipes, it could be just about anything. And Google will highlight, so that gives you a really good understanding of sort of what's going on across the site, and also the errors that you put there as well. So if there's any kind of issues that you might need to dig into, it will show you that, which I think is really, really cool. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And Google also provides a very, very useful tool, a structured data testing tool, which is online. So that will help you validate and test your pages. So say you've implemented either your Trustpilot widgets, or you've implemented your own solution to this. Actually, you can use this Trustpilot, the structured data testing tool, to help you check how that validates and whether or not Google's seeing the right information in your pages. It's also quite good actually before you implement your schema with your JSON-LD or microdata, because actually you can put into here the raw HTML and actually test the validations before you even actually implement it within the pages themselves. So it's really nice from that point of view. And it's particularly good if you've got errors in terms of helping you debug where those errors can be, because obviously we know that the devil's in the details. So a comma missing here, a quote mark there, can make all the difference between whether or not this stuff works or not. So there's a great tool actually to use. And then I guess in terms of implementing reviews, that's the technical side of how you'd use those reviews. So let's say there's a product reviews or aggregate ratings within your pages. Actually, there's other ways that you can use these reviews. So whilst Google's quite strict in terms of what you can do with schema markup, where and how you can implement it, actually that you've got this review data, and that review data is content. So there's nothing stopping you using that information in other kind of smart and clever ways to perhaps help you target other searches in the journey. So schema markup in general is not meant to be used on category level pages, but actually the review data and the rich textual content of that, the quality of information, absolutely could be. So one of the things I think is a big opportunity that not many people do is try and target like slightly further up the funnel, so evaluation type searches, or even like product comparison and review searches. And as you can see, I've just got a couple of examples here. So like I'm looking, these are TV related ones. But actually, once you start looking at brand related searches, actually you find that in that customer journey, reviews are like one of the very top sort of searches in the journey. So I'm using search just here as an example of really the kind of routes that people will go through. But if we're looking at Sony TVs, actually, Google's indicating that the next possible most popular search here is probably going to be reviews. So that's the kind of thing that we really want to think about. Is okay, that's quite important then. So not only could I surface reviews from an individual product, but could I create content and create pages that help me target these upper funnel searches a bit better. And actually, even these specific brand searches, like certain sites do this quite well. So I've got a couple of examples here. One is a DFS example, is a client of ours. Actually, it shows how you can do that both with the information that's on Trustpilot, but actually also on your own website as well, which is pretty cool. So using those reviews within the pages, which is great, so that you control that kind of feedback loop, and you have a bit more control over your customer journey. And I guess in terms of implementing, you'll see there's a variety of ways you can do this. So because if you've got the capabilities, you may build an in-house system to do it. But actually, predominantly, a lot of people will go to an outsource, like a platform provider, and there is a huge variety of these in the marketplace. But there's a couple of things I think are worth looking at when you look at a platform partner. So the core reasons why you might look at one is obviously the ease of integration, so off-the-shelf functionality. Everybody knows that building new technology can be time-consuming and costly. Have they got good kind of flexible data storage structures, so that if you're going to put your data into their systems, can you do stuff with it when you get it back out? Nice APIs are really, really good, because whilst you can get off-the-shelf solutions, actually being able to be a little bit more creative in terms of how you input reviews is also really, really important, and having the API accesses enables you to do that. Also making sure the platforms are pretty well recognized by Google. So to be honest, I like working with Trustpilot, and that's why I'm here, because for very many years it's been one of the few platforms that I feel has done this really, really well. And interestingly enough, there was an SEM Rush study that came out. Did it come out last week? Or was it this week? I think maybe it came out at the end of last week, actually, which
it was
just the end of April, wasn't it? 24th of April, yeah, just looking at the picture. But it was interesting. It looked at a lot of the main platforms online, actually, and rated Trustpilot the best, which is really cool. So well done, guys.
I think the other kind of valid point to make here really is we also, if you're a retailer that's using a product reviews platform like Bazaar Voice, we quite often exist alongside those platforms, because from an SEO perspective, you might not be getting the same benefits. So we quite often we're paired up with one of the white label review platforms. So they're obviously much more closed and don't quite have the scale, I suppose, for SEO. But yeah, we work really well alongside them, so that's always a good thing to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And it depends. When you're out there, I guess, whether you're a client or you're an agency, actually you need to think about, you need to review them yourself and work out which of the platforms are right. But definitely worth having a look at Trustpilot anyway. Oh, and there's another commercial ad break here.
Yeah, I'll keep this very brief. I think this is just another really good example, and I suppose I'm always really keen to point out that service businesses, and in fact, I came from a service business about a year ago that was using Trustpilot within property, and I think if you're trying to take a traditional service category online, like mortgages here, this is a big US mortgage lending company. There's not a traditional bank, so it doesn't have that brand behind it. You can see some really spectacular results in terms of the effective rich snippet starts in this example.
Cool.
So yeah, it's not just for product.
Great. So, there we go. So, excuse the language. So, I'm kind of going to wrap this up in a second. But so, in terms of going back to this, how do you understand your customer journey and untapping the potential of across organic search within that customer journey? I think that's really, really what this is about. So, actually, think about the different stages in the customer journey and the different ways in which reviews appear, and then think about the approaches you need to take to that. So whether you want to target people at the evaluation stage, or you need to inform or just kind of evolve them with your brand and your products. So as we just talked about there, optimizing content around brand and product reviews to target those evaluation searches, maybe creating dedicated review pages, targeting category information. That's a great thing to do. And maybe think about reviews on other people's websites at that point in time. And then you've got people that are looking to actually act and actively do something. So you want to be the place they go to make a purchase, and you want to try and convert them better. So make sure you're implementing your content really, really well. Use schema to surface rich snippets, aggregate ratings to drive those click-through rates. Use the user-generated content to increase the uniqueness and relevance of your product pages. Try to get them to improve their position in the rankings or the range of key phrases you target. Of your multi-channel, omni-channel, whatever you want to call it. Think about ownership and optimization of your local listings. How do you drive reviews in there to improve your positions as well? And then sort of post-purchase, how do you drive that advocacy? So include those social sharing plugins to drive sharing. So not only just to share, actually, it is an interesting point because Alan and I were chatting about this yesterday. So not only just to drive sharing on social channels, but actually to even perhaps drive sharing of your reviews themselves. So you say you've got someone that's got a 5-star review, actually really encourage them to share that, because that's really good, because clearly they care about your business and your products and they think it's a great thing, so you want them to tell everyone about it. So maybe even within your review platforms, when somebody does that, actually push them to share that as part of the process. And then sort of segment customers and gather valid sort of useful customer reviews. So make sure you're thinking, if you've got a limited customer base, but actually you've got quite a complex user journey and reviews in lots of different places, okay, you're not going to ask every customer to do every kind of review. How do you kind of organize these into different groups where actually you can say, okay, a proportion are going to do this and then a proportion are going to do that. So think about doing that. And then finally, as we just talked about, underpinning all this, you've got to implement the right kind of technology to help you do that. So obviously you can either do that yourself or choose a platform like a provider or partner that will help you, and one that really works for you as a business. I think that's really key. And then finally, yes, a bit of Jeff Bezos to bring it back to Amazon. So, I mean, when we talk about reviews and e-commerce, of course, it wouldn't be right to do that without talking about Amazon, because they do almost everything incredibly well, and they always have done for a long time. So Jeff here looking extremely happy. I believe the second richest man in America. I'm sure I'd be smiling like that if I was the second richest man in America. But actually, Jeff has a really interesting, and this suggests some really interesting stuff, because reviews have always been at the heart of Amazon's platform in a variety of forms. So almost everything I talk about here, to some degree, Amazon does incredibly well. But he has this kind of quote that I really, really like. He doesn't make money just from selling stuff. He makes money when he helps customers make purchase decisions. And I think that's a really key thing when we talk about reviews. So yes, volume is really good, but actually it's that kind of usefulness, because what can be a bad review to one person actually is a useful review and highlights an aspect of a product or something that somebody else might think is a benefit. And I think that's really, really key. And the other thing is, of course, finally, you can use that review information as product feedback to help you improve your own products, because it works. And they did make a version of a 3-month million t-shirt with walls that glow in the dark. So that just shows you how much it works. Cool. So questions and answers. Obviously, I've put a list here of all the different reference points. So if anybody downloads this, you can get those statistics yourself and dive into it a little bit more on their case studies and the different bits of data, because they're all worth reading. There's some very, very good bits of research and reports there.
Fantastic. Well, I think there's some good, some really interesting stuff that came through there, and some good questions come through already. So if anyone has any further follow-up questions, now is the time to your chance to ask. But I've got 3 or 4 to get us started, so that's a good starting point there. So the first question is from someone called Tom, and he asks, do you think we will see more or less review snippets in the SERPs in the future?
Ooh, it's always it's a good question. It is a very good question, actually. I think looking at the overall trend, I would probably say you're likely to see more over time. And there's 2 reasons why I say that is. I mean, I can't predict 5 years in the future, right? So I'm not going to get that far, but I'm just looking at where we are now versus probably where we were a couple of years ago, and looking at that kind of trajectory. So Google has more recently been introducing quite a lot more reviews in a lot of different forms. So yes, you're seeing more star ratings, because actually more sites are kind of getting their act together and they're being able to implement this. So there's an implementational growth in terms of sites implementing and gathering reviews. There's also, if you look at things like Google My Business, you see what they've done recently. One of the slides I had here, actually, where reviews have now been incorporated into that as a selection criteria. So that's an increase in the usage of reviews. In the recent sort of knowledge graph update, actually, again, that example I had where I showed the Facebook reviews being pulled into the knowledge graph themselves, that's an addition of review data. So yeah, I think over time you'll probably see more rich snippets, and we'll probably see more review information in lots of different ways, shapes, or forms within search in general. I mean, how that plays out on platforms like Voice, I'm not too sure yet, because it's still quite early days in terms of that kind of technology.
I suppose it's not that far-fetched to kind of have the search behaviour. It might be like, order food from a 5-star review, take, like that type of, use it as a search parameter, I suppose.
Absolutely. So say we're on Amazon, you're on a shop, you go, well, give me the best rated product. Yeah. Actually, that could be a very likely kind of search filter that people will automatically start defaulting to when they're doing conversational queries. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. But I can only assume that in my mind, that they are going to get more important and play a bigger role, because particularly when you think about voice as an interaction mechanism, it's quite easy for us to ask what one of the challenges around voice input and output is. You need to think about it as 2 things. When you think, okay, voice input's really easy, voice output is kind of like, it works for one-word answers, and kind of it works for device control, like turn the lights on and off, etc., where you have to have a selection or a range of results. Actually, the output's really kind of bad. Because I think I was reading the data the other day. I think we can input it about 300 words per minute in voice, but actually the output is only like 150. So it's quite inferior to like that visual display of results, where I think we can skim through about 600 words a minute actually for skim reading. So it's quite a lot. So voice as an output mechanism is quite slow. So people will want to find ways to filter very quickly down to a single item. And I guess reviews are probably going to play a key role in that.
Fantastic.
I think I think another thing we've seen, Kelvin, from Google recently is a focus on quality as well. Paid search, you've seen them put up the threshold for getting Google seller ratings up from 50 to 125, I think it is now. Which showed that the volume and the source of your reviews is important. I think Google are really conscious of that in terms of the quality of those reviews and the authenticity of the reviews as well. I think they're super conscious of that, and we see a lot of changes in that area.
Fantastic. I've got a question here from Benjamin, and he says, the business I work for has just started using Trustpilot. We have 111 gyms and 31 hospitals. All locations have varied average star rating, so we are reluctant to roll out across the whole estate for obvious reasons. Would you suggest deploying the average star rating across the entire estate? There on those ones. I think that's kind of to do with aggregate scores, I suppose. Maybe is the question there.
I mean, obviously, yeah. Go on, I'll let you go for this one first, Alan.
It's a good question. I mean, I suppose the question back is what are your goals? I mean, if we have retailers that deliberately.
I've got a revision of the question that might help Alan on that one. So it's an umbrella rating versus a by location rating. So I think that
yeah. I mean, I think if you're trying to push individual locations, then unless they've got a really terrible score, then I would certainly push it by location, and that will certainly have impact a greater impact in search if that's what you're looking to do, and it will certainly make it more authentic. We do have a lot of retailers that do that, and then also use it to really drive improvements in service levels internally as well. And if that's public, it's a lot more powerful.
I think actually
there might be short-term pain, but
I think there's a good follow-up question here from Dean as well, actually, which is kind of related to that, saying, how do you persuade clients to get involved with reviews after having had a bad experience in the past, i.e. negative reviews based on poor delivery, which was out of their control? This is related, isn't it? Yeah.
Definitely, and I've had a lot of conversations with prospects where they've said, okay, we're not ready. There's things we've got to fix before we can, really expose ourselves and get all the benefits that we know we need to do. And they've actually gone away for 6 months and fixed some of the supply chain issues, or deliveries, a very, very common one. And then they've come back and they've gone public.
Yeah, but I suppose having that insight allows you to better diagnose how big a deal it is, or what's the priority. What is it? Yeah. You might think it's an issue, and obviously it is, but it's kind of like how the scale of that. Yeah,
absolutely. And those conversations are happening anyway. It's just whether you can see them or not. Yeah, and one of the key points about this is actually that it's that feedback loop that reviews are. It will give you information about your business. So whether you do that via NPS or you're looking at your online reviews of those reviews you're getting back in real time, they can highlight very important problems that need fixing, either within products or service delivery, all those kind of things. So I think that is a really useful part of reviews, which is often overlooked.
There's actually a question about NPS here. So if it's Jep, sorry if I've said your name wrong there, that one, Jep. How do we calculate NPS? And could you use something like Trustpilot to create an NPS score?
It's a different question. So it's fundamentally a different measurement. Sorry, Teddy, were you going to add to that?
No, it's fine. That's right. You go on, carry on. It's okay. Cool.
So we would never see ourselves as a complete replacement to NPS. What we do, we see a lot of companies that use us alongside NPS, partly because NPS is great for the boardroom, and Trustpilot's great for the consumer, but most of all because what we see a lot of is the real-time impact of getting reviews on a daily basis, and the depth of the qualitative feedback that you get works really well alongside NPS, and will often tell you the reason for a dip or a spike in your NPS score. So I would use them together. Together, they're really powerful.
Yeah, and then the calculation, obviously, actually, it was on the slides here. You have the calculation. It is quite simply a score of a percentage score out of 100 based on the promoters versus the detractors. So if you have a look online, you'll find a huge amount of information about how it works and how it's calculated. And then obviously, like you would anything else, if you need to get that customer feedback and ask them to leave those reviews and those scores. But it is quite a straightforward calculation. But what the art is how you use that information then to improve your business and your products. I think that's the really key thing there, to look at what people are saying when they give you that feedback, or why wouldn't they recommend your product, business or service to someone else. I think that's really key.
Fantastic. So we've got a question here from Reese, and that is, I work in higher education. What review would you use for degrees/courses?
Ooh.
And is there a schema for that as well?
To be honest, I actually can't answer that off the top of my head right now. I'd have to have a look at that one. So no, this is mostly focused on e-commerce, so I'm not really. I haven't got
There
the
is
answer
an educational event one, isn't there? I know that much because we've used that for training. So I know that I'm not sure if it's for courses, but I'll have a look while you guys are on.
Look that one up myself. Yeah. To be honest, most of the focus I've got at the moment is on e-commerce and retail. But schema is interesting because there's an absolutely vast array of schema tags that you can use for different things. So around courses, I guess if they're online, there's going to be some of the event criteria schema as well, because they presumably got timing. So when those things happen, if they're happening at a particular time, let's have a look at courses and see what comes back here.
Fantastic. There's another question here, actually. This might be good for Andy while you're looking into that. So, Alan, sorry, not Andy. The question's not. I've got a question from Andy and a question from Sachinda as well. Too many names going through my head. So this one's from Sachinda for Alan. So, how is Trustpilot perceived internationally in different markets?
So in the UK, we're certainly the market leader, and I think that SEMrush blog certainly does a good job for us in showing where we are in the UK. We're a Danish business, so in the Nordics we're a household name, with kind of 90% brand awareness. In the UK we've got about 40% brand awareness. So from a consumer's perspective, we're getting pretty well known, especially with people that do shop online. Continental Europe, we're about the same as the UK. There's some big competitors, obviously, in some markets there. And in the US, we're still growing fast, but it's a big focus for us at the moment. But the UK is a really strong market for us. But obviously, that global reach has a lot of benefits in terms of the scale of the platform, and it gives us a good global footprint.
Fantastic. And now I've got that question from Andy. That's confusing myself there nicely there. So anything you can suggest to improve the sort of search value of the text in the review itself? So I suppose that maybe that's to do with kind of like the keyword variation. Anything you do to get kind of like richer reviews in the questions or who you approach, or is there any particular advice on that front maybe?
Well, I mean, you can't really, the nature of the system means you can't really sort of optimize the text, obviously, but maybe the way you ask the question, the way you phrase the question that you ask, can get you a better response. If you're really looking for it to get picked up. So if you want to ask about a specific part of your service, for example, you might get better keywords back in terms of response to that. And again, when you ask might be really crucial for that as well. But that's probably about as much as you can do.
Fantastic. There was one question which I think was from Ben saying, will there be a copy of the slides circulated? I think we're going to also send round a video recording as well on that front as well. And the final question, I think, to kind of wrap things up here was from Gabby, who said, would you advise people to ask for feedback first before asking straight to post to Google or Facebook, etc., to filter out the bad ones and only get the good ones?
Not really. I think that's definitely not what we're advocating. I think you need to do a range of different things. So as Alan was saying, you might, and actually this depends on your business again and your ecosystem, like how many different types of reviews and forms you've got. You might just send NPS to all customers and see if you get feedback there, but you also might send them to online reviews as well. But I think, it's definitely not just trying to get good reviews, it's trying to get relevant and useful reviews, so people that will leave I guess well-written reviews because they care about your products and they're going to take the time to do it. So you could try and do that if you want to. I wouldn't necessarily say that was the best thing to do, but you'd want to use a mixture of both, basically.
Definitely. I mean, it sounds very idealistic, but if you really want to make your business more customer-centric, then you need to have a good range of reviews coming in. And actually, what we see as a negative review can be just as powerful as a positive one. If you actually respond to that review and show that you've solved the issue that they had, that can be incredibly compelling for someone thinking about using your business.
And exactly, sometimes, as I was saying before, what's negative to one person can be a benefit for another. So I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but basically if someone says there's a feature of a product that actually they don't like. Someone else might be looking for that feature of their product. You've got a TV screen, and somebody said, okay, I don't like the TV screen. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5 star rating because the screen was too bright. Someone else might be looking for a really bright TV screen, and actually that's the product benefit that they want. So I wouldn't just judge it on the star rating and saying that's. Think about the actual information in reviews is really valuable in helping the people make their decisions. I did have a brief look about the university scheme actually, and it looks like most universities are not really using reviews or schema markup that much. So the main ones seem to be the business information and events. So I think you probably need to dig in that a little bit more. But the main review types, obviously products, people, obviously aggregate review ratings, events and so on, recipes, etc. There's a few standard review types that Google recognizes in schema, and I'm not sure, apart from events or business information, there's any that are super relevant to universities right now. But it sounds like a really interesting topic area to explore a little bit more.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much, both of you, for all your insight there, and thanks everyone who's attended for asking all those great questions as well. As I said, if you joined us a little bit later, or if the sound was a little bit quiet, or all of those different things, or you had to jump out to take a phone call, we're going to be sending around a recording of today's session as well, so you can circulate that if there's a colleague who you think would really benefit from that as well. Please do. But that'll be coming across to you on the email very, very shortly. But again, thanks very much, everybody, for all your time. I hope you had a lovely afternoon, and I hope you have a lovely weekend as well. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.